And before anyone asks, no, this is not a W ending speedrun. So I hope we won't be seeing any prologue deaths today. Fun fact, that actually did happen before in the tournament, but I won't be naming any names. First difference you might be seeing between the two runners is the left side, Kanaris, is actually running in Japanese, which doesn't actually help in loadless, but it does save RTA time, which means over the course of a lot of runs, he'll be saving some real life time, making his runs shorter because the loading screens are shorter in Japanese, for reasons that I'm not quite sure about. So for the first section of this run, it's basically a shmup, which is a shoot 'em up. A genre that used to be quite popular a while ago, but you'll be seeing later on in the run while we're not big fans of shmups. For starters, we basically just have to wait for slightly over 1.5 minutes for the first things to happen, and before we can actually interact with the game itself in a meaningful way. There's a few optimizations. Most runners will choose to switch their weapon sets here and receive some intentional damage and do some menuing in order to be as quick as possible in losing some of their recoveries, because the large and the medium recoveries would otherwise waste menuing time later on in the run, in the prologue to be precise. And for the shmup section, there's mainly memorization to do, but how fast you can execute your memorized waves actually does matter quite a bit. There's a relatively big range on this shmup between good runners like Kanaris and myself. I think he's recently actually had what I would consider crash landing record, which was slightly under 419. I don't think anyone's ever been faster than that.
1D down. Assuming captain's duty.
And yeah, once again, both runners taking intentional damage here, so don't be going around thinking, what are they doing? How do they manage to get hit so often? Which is actually a pretty big part in the run, as you'll see later on, because of something very nifty that has been rooted in. We can pretty much ignore any kind of damage we receive later on. Yeah, so for this wave, this kind of like circular thing can be pretty hard to get very quickly, but done perfectly by both runners as far as I could tell. And as you can kind of see right now, both runners are extremely synchronized in their waves. So right now I'm quite impressed by wschseng's performance once again. He's been able to catch up with very quick times very fast. He's also won against Ethereum, one of our resident runners who's been having very good times himself.
Operator to 2B, we need you to rendezvous with Unit 9S and begin gathering data on the local terrain. Understood.
Just another section where we don't really have much influence. We can fly around or shoot, but it doesn't affect how fast we are able to progress. And this section is usually where most people get rid of their last 1 or 2 medium recoveries. And Kanaris doing a little bit of the swag there, trying to get through the very tiny openings without receiving damage. And coming up might be the first section that people are looking forward to, which is changing from this camera angle switching shmup to an actual like 3-dimensional environment where we can actively move in a spherical fashion. Kanaris gained a bit of a lead there on wschseng, but so far that's nothing to be too concerned about. So those were the first real enemies in the game, as I would like to consider them. They're called stubbies, and they have a few quite annoying traits. They receive invincibility frames, which means no matter what you do, you won't be able to damage them on certain frames of their animations. And Kanaris just did a small but easy and interesting optimization there. If you move in a circle just before that guy dies, instead of 2B jumping upwards, you'll just go straight to the cutscene, which saves maybe a second, I think. But gotta look for those small optimizations. And this is the first boss in the game. Both runners choosing to buff up here because simply we want to get his HP down as quickly as possible, preferably before the dialogue ends, so that the next animation will definitively be his last animation. Basically, as soon as you trigger his second attack, that's when you're able to kill him. And I'm curious if Kanaris... Ooh, Kanaris going for the clip that was discovered by Sang. It's a bit iffy, but if you can get it, as he did very, very well there, you can save quite some time. I think it's 3 seconds in total over the method that we used to do. Sang messing up a tiny little bit there, but I think he's over. Ooh, shit. Sorry. I shouldn't have used that word. Sang sadly messing up his own clip a little bit there and gets caught off guard by it. That costs quite a lot of time. Ooh, does get the setup the second time around. This might mean a very significant lead for Kanaris already. Gets it fine the second time around though. Whew. Kanaris moved on to what we call Silo, I believe it's Silo 2, and just very clean clearing of the stubbies once again, and the first real high jump or skip in the game, which is bridge skip. It's a very precise high jump. I wouldn't think of it as the most precise flip in the game, but it's quite difficult to learn when you're first picking up the game. And this is the second part of the skip, which is kind of like a lava out of bounds movement. You just have to learn the precise angles, and then, yeah, you said it looks pretty wild, but with enough practice, anything can be learned in this game. And as you saw, the game is actually quite broken in a lot of ways, and Kanaris gets the absolute god laser. Kanaris is sadly very significantly in the lead already, because Sang was unable to perform the skip he found himself to his normal standards. Just a small mess up there, but it can lead to a pretty big time loss if you're not careful. Ooh, seems like Sang is feeling the pressure a little bit here. I wonder if we'll see angle swag. Kanaris opting to do it. It's a very, very small optimization. Saves at best 1 second if you execute it perfectly, which he did. And it just looks really cool to just be slicing through angles like that.
There should be another facility
but
across that bridge.
don't worry,
It's a bit of a hike,
even though
but you should
Kanaris
check
is
it out.
quite in the lead, there's still plenty of opportunities in this run for Sang to catch up, even though Kanaris has been known to be a very consistent and very skillful runner.
I wouldn't bet on that.
This is kind of like the second, I would call it mini boss of the prologue. There's 2 different ways to do it. Kanaris is opting for the more strategic and advanced version, which is without buffs. I believe you have to hit him with 3 damage glitches. Sang also opting for angle swag, by the way. You have to hit him with 3 damage glitches before he finishes his animation and ends up on that end of the pipe spinning. If you don't hit all 3 of them, you need to buff up, otherwise you're losing more time than it would take to buff up. Yeah, Sang sadly lost quite some time. I'm not sure if it's an entire minute, but it's significant enough. And this is why many runners still opt not to do that trick. Not necessarily because of that, but it's something very new that not everyone is very practiced with. Kanaris opting to receive a lot of damage there. It doesn't cause any time loss, but it looks a bit Monkai-esque. Yeah,
The old skip that we're used to is basically two chains of high jumps, one onto the platform that we saw a bit further down the road, the other one on top of the crane. It's very consistent, it's kind of easy to do, but it's slower if you can pull off Zheng's new version. This section is entirely timed for both runners, as far as I can tell. They're currently in the timed section, right? So it doesn't really matter what we do. We can't slow down the dialogue or whatever. Kanaris having being favored by RNG. No punches today. Punches is a specific attack that Engels can do, which is the prologue boss, and that can lose up to 25 seconds, I think. So yeah, cross your fingers and hope for the best. I hope Zheng does not get punches. As I'm reading in the chat right now, Demonic Impulse having timed the time difference between the two, so it would seem that Zheng is almost exactly 50 seconds behind. And yeah, Kanaris in another timed section. Nothing you can really do wrong here, other than attacking Engels. If you do attack him very frequently, Engels actually slows down his animations, so you would create time loss by attacking him. He does choose the left pipe for going out of bounds. Once again, it's purely a visual thing. Luckily, Zheng didn't get punches either, so both runners, at least in that regard, are on an even playing field. Coming up is a section that most runners do hate. This is just a double jump, the first instance of it using it in the run. You use the stairs to reset your lift, which is a sword heavy, like being done at the same time as a jump. So you can basically just use it twice because the game thinks you were on solid ground. And this is the ninjas part. They do just drop out of nowhere and have a pretty strange behavior sometimes, especially when they get iframes once again, which can cause a lot of time loss for people. Or just make people tilt. Ooh, Kanaris opting to do his... I would say it's a pretty new strategy. I don't actually know if it works and how it works, and I find it very risky. But supposedly, by being very low health, you can time being hit by Engels' attacks in such a way that you minimize the RNG involved and manage to get him to finish an attack just when the dialogue ends. Maybe it's just swag, or maybe it's actually a thing. I haven't really looked into it. And this is kind of one of the things that I believe led to previously us seeing a W ending in the run. But I think Kanaris wasn't able to pull it off, or didn't want to pull it off, I'm not sure. But yeah. The timing was still pretty fortunate. The rocket attack ended almost exactly with the dialogue.
Upper arm. Seized from enemy unit. Marking weak point. Got it.
The reason why we want that to happen, by the way, is that as soon as Engels ends his next animation cycle after the dialogue ends, that's when we get the cutscene and are able to finish him off.
Enemy unit subjugation complete.
So, and that would be the prologue boss number 1. Very nice segment there for Kanaris. I think that was a 14-15 prologue. That's quite a nice time, I think, especially considering a race situation. Coming up on the, I guess, real prologue boss, which is the first section of menuing in the game. Even very seasoned runners sometimes do mess that up. And I guess it's not too bad an A ending. It costs you max like 1 or 2 seconds if you mess up really bad, but that can actually pile up in longer categories because, spoiler alert, in B ending, you do get to see the whole sequence once again in the same manner that you performed it in A ending.
All right. Oh, I could. Okay, once.
Kanaris getting flawlessly through the menu boss.
Morning.
And Seng seems to have caught up a little bit, maybe. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But the timers are kind of out of sync, the loading screens are messing things up a little bit, so I find it hard to evaluate. I'd have to actually mark down some timings at specific points.
Nice.
So yeah, right now we're just spamming through dialogue, through button mashing, triggering 9S to teleport to us, as Kanaris did right there, and skipping the dialogue simply by talking to 9S. Otherwise we would have to slow walk and listen to him, which does lose quite a bit of time. One of the few and first instances that you will see us using partner dialogue cancels. And also the first instance of us seeing self-destruct, which is a very nifty feature used plenty in the run. Chat just said that Sang's prologue finish was 15:10, I think, compared to Kanaris 14:15. So still about 1 minute. Second small shmup section in the game that Kanaris is on right now. You can optimize here quite a lot, but this one doesn't actually have that much of a difference in optimization compared to what you can achieve on Crash. What I know that Kanaris does is just line up for the first pod missiles that we saw earlier, then he cleans out the waves left from right, does a strategy that he, I believe, adopted from Marble Soda, which is what you see right here. It's kind of like, it looks like he's mindlessly shooting over the screen, but it's actually spraying in a very particular pattern that, if done correctly, is able to obliterate the screen almost immediately. Unfortunate RNG on the fidget spinners right there, but it still manages to clean them out very nicely. You can basically just stop light attacking when the fidget spinners come down, position yourself well, pre-fire your pop missiles so that they come out in a circle like that, and evaporate the first one instantly, and then you just hit the second one with normal attacks and pop fire. Excuse me. Yay, back to three-dimensional movement once again. Yeah, and something that most of us will know very well, fetch quests. And that was another small dialogue skip and cutscene skip that, not like cutscene skip, mostly a slow walk skip that Kanaris did right there. If you are in the middle of an animation, I don't know the exact starting and end points, but any kind of like combat animation does seem to work and jumping does seem to work. While you enter a cutscene, you can circumvent yourself from slow walking while approaching it. Kanaris opted to do it with dash punch, which is a pretty short time frame, but if you're very good about knowing your positioning, then it works out well. And this time he opted not to use one because it wouldn't actually have worked out, I think, based on his pacing of the dash and the punches. It's a bit risky to do it without dash swinging. And you do see him doing a lot of dash punches. It does look quite wonky, but it does save time. It's a proven thing. Fullest did a lot of averaging out over several attempts, and it is actually faster. And yeah, same coming up on the first movement section of the game as well. Kanaris having picked up his quest. So yeah, just walk from place A, or in our case, dash and punch from place A to place B, do a little bit of aerial movement, and gotta pick up a few quest items, kill a few enemies, which have been found through very meticulous analyzing of routes apparently. there's only like one particular spot that guarantees, or virtually guarantees, for all quest items to be there. I think it's a guaranteed thing, but I've heard rumors that it's not 100%.
Plant life has claimed most of the central area. Big plants too.
A little bit more aerial movement there. Just it's been shown that it's the fastest way to move in between those 2 points. Even though it's vertical movement, which is technically diverting from a beeline, the directness at which we go from those 2 points does make it more than worthwhile. And if you plunge from very high places, it actually allows you to cross distances pretty fast.
Man, these chores are a real pain in the butt, huh?
The resistance is a
Both runners utilizing the very hated dash punch, I would almost say. Many people do not like it. It looks wonky.
Yeah.
It has a very narrow time frame. It's easy to mess up, and if you do mess one up, I think it takes 3 dash punches. No, 1 mess up leads to 15 dash punches worth of catching up to do. And this is where you saw Kanaris just upgrading his sword, which is usually the only time in this run that we do upgrade our weapon, but maybe not, we'll see. That allows us to use a different kind of movement technique, which you see right now. That's dash swinging. It does save more time than the dash punches, and it just looks and sounds kind of cool. But as you see right now on Kanaris' screen, we can't really do it while there are enemies very close by, because the game has an annoying mechanic which is auto lock off. You can't really turn it off, you can minimize it, but it will still happen if you're very close to enemies. Other than that, it's fast movement, and Kanaris is using slow motion here. Slow motion is kind of an abuse of a mechanic that whenever you charge your pod programs, the pod is a small thing floating around 2B's body right now, time slows down a little bit for everything despite 2B. So you can use that to do some nifty things like keep mobs from attacking you and interrupting you in your movements. That's mostly it, really. You can slow down enemies with it, and that can be tremendously useful, but sometimes you can even slow down game timers with it, which also has a few uses. Yeah, Kanaris just stocking up on some buffs, supplies, health, potions, and performing the first part of the desert skip line, I guess. Then we do activate and save there, so we hear this particular dialogue and don't have to bother with it later on in the run. And then we do this very crazy out-of-bounds movement, utilizing the save point to actually clip out and use the fastest point between the two connections. Yeah. Yeah, Kanaris, as I said, extremely good, determined, and talented runner. I'm pretty sure he's putting more time into this game than any other runner right now. Possibly more time than any other person in the world. I'm not too sure, but I'd definitely the most in terms of running the game. He's significantly over 1,000 hours played now.
This sand sure is slippery.
So seeing him do things in a very optimal way is not very surprising. I'll get more into the mechanics of the skip when we see it on wschseng's screen. I kind of missed out on that. So yeah, you just do like either a pod launch or a heavy in order to get in there. And then you do this out of bounds movement. There's not that much to keep in mind. There's a small hole in the invisible floor that you can fall through, but once you know where it is, the movement becomes pretty easy to pull off. Kanaris doing some desert movement right now. He was the one who actually optimized that as good as was possible. You can use the slide and it is faster, but it's a bit technical to learn at first. This is the second part of the desert out of bounds of the level, I think, or I guess. And What we're doing or trying to achieve here is first we want to get through the barricade without talking to a character named Jackass, and then we want to skip a cutscene that would trigger here, both saving us quite a significant amount of time. For the cutscene, it's only 4 seconds, but if you can pull off the movement as beautifully as Zheng and Kanaris did, then it's well worth it. And right now you can see Zheng is doing the same that Kanaris did, walking in the opposite direction of the quest objective, which does lose quite a lot of time, but it's all worth it because of the pod we're picking up. It effectively doubles our damage in certain situations for our burst damage output, which is very useful. And Kanaris just did a clip out at a window of the building that you saw there. Pretty technical, pretty iffy, but he did it very well, as I guess is to be expected. To get us here, a very wonky, very strange, out-of-bounds area with a lot of invisible floor, a lot of visible floor that is actually not floor, and our resident glitch hunter Marky has found us a route that gets all the mandatory triggers in order to activate the story progressions, and then just plunge through that particular platform. Zheng sadly failed a clip that we call Stupid Rock. It's not really a clip, but it's kind of like an accelerated movement technique. You can plunge into that rock if Don Burrows, the NPC you saw there, moves in a way that, like, if he burrows in the right time and you do your plunge at the right time, you just boost through the cutscene and land right in front of his feet. Kanaris doing a fight that is, well, not quite PG-13 in the beginning. I guess it is because it's robots, but they're doing some weird movements there. And right now he's really punishing them. Very, very clean section. You cannot actually lose time here. There's one way you can actually skip that section, but we've so far determined that it's most likely not worth it. It's one of our only sections in the game where we can get or farm experience and crit chips and materials as well, which can be tremendously useful, and the experience is always useful, and so are the chips in almost every single case. Zheng always also doing the out-of-bounds movement and doing something very daring, in my opinion. He was performing the glitch without moving his camera, so he was pretty much doing it blind, or only by minimap, which led to him not getting the platform less. You can also just plunge through the wall next to the platform, the center part, and then the platform will drop even though you're not on it. But if you miss it completely, it's pretty risky, because then you have to climb out again and hit the platform. Otherwise, this steam won't trigger. And Kanaris absolutely obliterating Adam there.
Come on, through that hole.
That was probably one of the fastest Adams I've ever seen, by the way. There's a small dialogue skip that you can actually do during the fight. If you damage him in certain intervals and enough. Basically, if you do enough burst damage, he won't say his sword dodge kind of thing, saving you another few seconds. You just want to stagger him while he's staggered and gains a level up in order to just skip that whole thing. And this, once again, is very optimized movement. Kanaris just... yeah, he did it and found himself the shortest or best possible way to get through that section. And Kanaris, very good multitasker, it would seem. Doing the whole out-of-bounds section and skips and typing. Alright, I guess I'm a bit behind this actual gameplay. Probably he was typing while he isn't loading the screen. Otherwise, that would have been pretty crazy. Oh yeah, and apparently you can use pod slow-mo to slow down the platforms falling. I've never actually tried or done it. Apparently neither has Kanaris, but it seems to be very useful.
Operator to 9S.
As I said, I never thought about it, but
I also have an incoming
quick
message from
improvised
Commander.
thinking there.
Initiating playback.
That might become something people do more often.
2B, 9S.
Otherwise, you actually have to jump a lot on those platforms in order to keep yourself from falling. And generally speaking, we don't want to jump much because it's oftentimes a momentum loss. And momentum is pretty much everything we want for this run in terms of speed. Well, that and good beelining. So you do want steady hands, and you want to be able to have very good control over your sticks.
I'm worried about the other androids. Looks like our surface route's been cut off. So 2B, those machines out in the desert look just like androids, right?
We're coming up on a section that
But we androids were modeled
very
after
few
our human
people
creators.
will do the way that
Why would machines
Kanaris
try to
does
look
it
like
currently.
us?
I'm not too sure if he will do it in the race, but I think he's confident enough by now. And as you can see in the chat, it's something I can get into it a little bit after Kanaris. I can't get into the details too much, but what he did just now was aerial movement in order to avoid getting another discovery trigger or cutscene. Normally they would just slow us down, put us in place, kill all our momentum and make us watch the cutscene. Coming up is another hard to learn trick or out of bounds movement for beginners, but once you get it down, it's pretty decently doable. Or once you practice it a bit. And yeah, as I guessed, Kanaris is going for something that we call roller coaster. It's a very timing specific thing and a very height specific thing. With a lot of practice, yeah, gets it perfectly. Very nice. With a lot of practice, you can get quite consistent at it, but not a lot of people have the time or are willing to put in that much practice as of right now. Also, it's really not that worth it unless you're competing for one of the top spots in the world.
What's this?
Analysis. It is a device that propels humans.
Because like part of the reason is you're already half an hour into a run. If things have been going really well right now, you do have a time save of 5 seconds, and if you mess it up, you basically have to reset. But Kanaris, actually, it was pretty damn amazing. This time it was absolutely pinpoint perfect. Normally you'd see yourself dashing a little bit against the invisible wall of the roller coaster, but he just dashed out as if there is no invisible wall.
It's totally okay.
And what he's doing right now is a movement that gets us Virtuous Dignity, the secret MVP of this run. The slow load after the pod launch. Yeah, during the roller coaster, it has a few very strange segments. I lost a little bit of track of what wschseng is doing. I'm sorry, but I'll try to get more into it later on again. Yeah, Virtuous Dignity is something very fancy that until quite recently we haven't been able to utilize, but now that roller coaster skip has been optimized by Marky,
What the hell?
we are able to actually get Virtuous Dignity. You can also get the tank, which is an optional boss that is next to it, but that doesn't really give us that much in terms of A ending. We do get a little bit of extra money, which we don't need, and about 400 experience points, but those are not mandatory at all. So if you're going for the roller coaster skip, you probably do want to get VD instead of the tank. Unless you absolutely hate spare bashing movement, which some people do. It can be quite disturbing in terms of the noises you make.
If we take hacking damage, it'll affect our bodies.
And the screen becomes pretty pixelated from the constant self-destruct spam. As you can see there, wschseng is doing the usual roller
Are we
route
seriously being attacked with
that's
androids?
more feasible for most people. You just call the roller coaster, you hop onto it, and you get to farm a few enemies, you're locked into the sequence, and just wait basically for the Beauvoir fight to start. As you can see there on Kanaris' screen, which I haven't been getting much into, he's currently fighting Beauvoir, which is most people's favorite boss, I've heard. Personally, I don't like it that much, but the music is very nice, that's for sure. First phase is just do as much damage as possible in as short a time as possible, as close to the stage as possible, to minimize the movement that Beauvoir has to make in order to get to the phase transition. Second phase can be pretty scary, which is all those androids randomly shooting lasers all through the place that can trap you in hacking scenes, which are at least 6 seconds of time lost each. So you really don't want to get hit by those. And the third phase, once again, is just do as much damage as possible, in as short a time as possible, and then self-destruct. And no, this is not in order to loot up 2B. This is in order to do something later on in the run that does save incredible amounts of time, as efficient as possible.
I guess.
And now we see this first instance of spare dashing. It's a very quick way of moving, and what I see Kanaris doing right there seems very optimal. Sadly, we don't know the perfect timings yet, and it is very difficult to actually get frame perfect timings for this kind of movement without a test. So if anyone's up for coding one, that would be great. Yeah, but anyways, now you also understand a little bit of why many people don't like it. It's noisy and you see SD all over the screen, but I think it's pretty obvious, especially in the side-scroller section, how fast it is. Oh, and by the way, what Kanaris did right there looks incredibly easy and incredibly optimized, but that was actually really freaking. You need absolute perfect SD pacing in order to get through that section the way he did. A little bit of a fumble in the end, but overall still very clean.
They all have white flags.
Looks like they really don't want to fight.
One of the nice side effects of spare dashing is you can actually just spare dash into cutscenes without slowing down at all, and you'll still skip the slow walk. I think Kanaris must have optimized the spare dashing movement a lot, because on that platform, he actually delayed his spare dashes, which was a very good choice. If you do it from the top of the platform, you'll slow yourself down, because you'll do aerial movement, and you'll kind of spare dash through the air instead of on the ground. And spare dashing only really works well when you're on the ground, because it's kind of like sticking to horizontal movements. But if there's a 90-degree between... It's not even a 90-degree. Basically, if you're doing it off of a flat surface that is extended in some way, you'll do spare dash in the air instead of following the floor. It's all very wonky.
I don't know how I'm supposed to go on living.
I am definitely not the person to
Wschseng also having completed the Beauvoir fight. I hope he's not too demotivated because of his fumble in prologue.
It would affect mission efficiency.
He's a very, very talented runner, and he's actually very skillful. So don't get yourself fooled. There's a reason why he's in the... I think it's the semi-finals already. And now to the part for why we actually want to self-destruct in the Beauvoir fight, even though we seemingly don't have to do it in order to save time. We want to, well, die later on. That is because we do keep quest items when we die. Not experience, though. And sadly also not our chips. But the only thing we have so far is, well, the quest item. We didn't equip any chips yet. So we can death warp back to Pascal's village and save us the whole traveling time. Which is also why we opt to sell and buy again. Alright, no, we do the angle section first. Sorry, it's been a bit since I did regular runs. I'm slightly rusty on the routing.
And it looks like there are a ton of other machines there with it. All your HUD units
Yeah, more of the spare dashing. Spare dashing, similarly to dash swinging movement, does have auto lock onto enemies, but sadly for spare dashing it has an incredible range of op. So you do have to slow down or at least stop your spare dashing if you know that there are enemies nearby that you can auto lock on, otherwise you just lose time.
We probably shouldn't get near that guy's feet. Yeah, no. Let's find another route.
And the upcoming section is us just ignoring this city angles and going to the second city angles, and you'll see soon why. So first of all, we don't want to pot fire the first one, because that would take ages, and second of all, we do get a flight unit later on. That does help quite a lot with things. Even though we don't normally like shmups, in that instance it's a blessing. Saying actually doing most people's favorite strategy. You grab a ball, you do the ball hopping. I didn't pay attention, did Kanaris do ball hopping? Probably. It looks really funky and it's really fast uphill, and you actually do get a tiny speed boost every time you touch the ground and hop again, so I guess it's a little bit like bunny hopping. So yeah, it's been timed and worth it that the hopping is faster on the sprinting board than simply sprinting. And what Kanaris did just there is utilizing a tiny hole in the... I think he leapt through it, I didn't quite catch it, but I think that's what he did. And... well, yeah, you do save a lot of time doing that. There's also a backup strategy which is pretty fast, but this is faster, I think. And this is why we know the first angles we encounter. We just go there with the flight unit, use our 2 pods and ranged attack up, I think, and then just obliterate him. Which leads us to this beautiful next section that we don't really have to do much. We just keep moving, get something that we call Skype glitch almost automatically as long as our movement is decent, and save even more time simply by getting Skype glitch, and then we do the negotiation section, which I'll get to once we're there. Wschseng also hadn't finished the death warp section of the game, and getting to the city angles right now.
Guess we'll see once we get there. If we're lucky.
You're not much for plans, are you, 2B?
Yeah, 2B is always a bit of a head first kind of person, head through the wall. Or in our case, spear dashing through the air.
Seems like they've been here for a long time.
What is this place?
I don't know. There's nothing like it in the...
Oh my goodness, no. I have a feeling that we might... No, that's not possible. Okay, let's see. Kanaris had a marvelous idea, but I have no idea what he'd be thinking.
The aliens you seek are no longer here. They were wiped out centuries ago by us, the machines.
So there's something that
And who knows,
would have no benefits, but that he could technically be doing for swag, and I'm not too sure if Kanaris would or will. No, he can. I don't know what he's planning. He's keeping us on our toes right here.
You'd probably be surprised at how quickly it happened.
You destroyed your own creators?
Oh, there's no need to fret about that.
So, one of the reasons why you see Kanaris vigorously shredding Eve right there is he does give us a free level up, which is very nice. And no matter what you do, this section won't get slower or faster.
Why then?
Because they are an enigma.
What we can do, however, is we can escape the section where we do fight Eve by doing a series of high jump combinations and a perfect evade, as you see right there. The game doesn't like that very much, so it doesn't allow us to adjust our camera or anything, but we can still do semi-blind movement with the minimap, and then just escape the boss room.
Assist you with what?
Once again, this really doesn't save any time, but it allows pick up world items, pick up chests with 3 titanium alloys in them, which can be pretty important, and it also allows us to kill the enemies here, getting experience and clearing up the tunnels. And clearing up the tunnels is very handy for when we want to exit this area again, because then we can just freely move without having to worry about any problems. However, something that I'm a bit worried about is you could technically leave the entire area, but that would put you in a state of potential soft lock, which Kanaris gladly did not do. Now Kanaris is keeping me on my toes a lot.
Back this way again?
Yeah, and as you can see, it's
Stop complaining.
beautifully clean right here, so Kanaris can just spare dash his entire way through there.
We're attempting to deploy them at other points as well.
About time we had access to those.
Care to fill me in?
Transporters? They let you transfer your
So yeah, we jump onto the ladder because it triggers Jackass, yes, that's a real name, to talk to us, and then we can just use that transporter immediately after, because that unlocks after negotiations. We go to bunker, do some button mashing once again. There's one small dialogue cancel there, and after that we get back into the wits and grits of the actual game. Sang is also at negotiations. Oh, Kanaris coming up with an extremely sexy dialogue cancel, I think. Ooh, yeah. That. Ooh, okay. That was pretty damn sexy.
It's been a while.
I'll rest if I feel
That was
like
pretty much as fast as it humanly possibly gets. And it's a very iffy section. If you so much as touch a micrometer of that particular dialogue, you'll be stuck in it. But you can partner cancel, like he dashed towards the trigger without actually hitting it, did the self-destruct tap to get into an idle state and just talk to 9S and immediately rush through that door. Zheng also going through the sadly slow section of negotiations. There's a way we can circumvent that has been very recently found by Maki once again, but it's not really all that applicable as of yet. We might see it more in the future. I think Kanaris does have VC3, Monka S, and Hype Master 3000. I believe that's the first time that Kanaris has managed to actually get VC3 and Virtuous Dignity and good chips as well in a run. Woo! Yeah. Next up is Mom Skip. This is once again aerial movement that I don't really
When do you think you'll be willing to call me
how it works, to be honest. I've never bothered looking into it. I don't know why I hate Mom Skip so much, but yeah. You just skip over a mom and her baby robot giving you quest dialogue, which does save. I think it's around 4 seconds if you do the movement well.
I think some of it. This must be the commercial structure Pascal was talking about. The records say it was once a facility known as a shopping center.
Sorry, I'll just be 10 seconds.
Is the Forest King.
You're getting.
Check this guy. He's just running away.
Okay, sorry, back I am. What you probably saw Kanaris doing just now was doing a dialogue cancel in order to get the robots to drop as fast as possible. Otherwise we have to watch a really long slow walk scene where 9S and 2B talk to each other, and then just kill those dialogues. Kill the robots, skip a few cutscenes, and now we get into the forest section of the game, which I personally like quite a lot. It's like a nice level design, nice music, nice format, like nice theme, basically. But for runners, especially when you're using spear dashing, it can be a bit eh. There's a lot of small rocks here, a lot of uneven floor that can mess up spear dashing. And I don't know if you've noticed, but some people that are familiar with spear dashing might have said it's gotten significantly faster than it was before. And that is because Kanaris upgraded his small sword, which does pretty much all the damage in the run. I never actually explained why, but I'll get to it once I have a breather. He upgraded to level 3. Not only does that give us 55% increased base damage on the small sword, at least if you average it out, it also makes the sword attack faster because there's an attack speed up buff. That's good for like dash swinging, what he's doing right now, but it's also good for spear dashing.
It might seem weird, but the attack speed of the spear dash movement is determined by the attack speed. Shoot! Kanaris sadly falling off there. It's not a big deal, but I think he might be bummed out having a very realistic chance to get a new world record with his current setup. To get back to that, yeah, the attack speed of spear dashing and therefore its movement speed is determined by the attack speed of the weapon in your heavy slot. And what you saw there was just some crazy castle out of bounds movement that I don't have enough time to explain in detail. But the idea is you clip out at the tree root, you move around, climb the windows, which have collision for reasons that don't make much sense because normally you wouldn't be able to see them. And you basically just skip the entire castle section that you had to maze your way through in your casual playthrough and just go straight to the boss fight. I wonder if we'll see A2 getting absolutely obliterated. And it's, yeah, that's pretty much what it was. A2 getting obliterated and getting critical hits in with VC3 is pretty beast, as you saw right there. Another high jump to get over. I guess this is kind of a dialogue barrier. If you don't get far enough, the pod will just tell you nope, and you'll slow walk back to where you came from. And this section we have to slow-mo in order to be able to interact with Transporter, otherwise this happens and all the enemies around just block Transporter and we are not allowed to use it anymore, which is not very nice, but you can get around it. Something that I've not gone over so far. So both runners are using something called the resilience chip. This is the reason why we won't be seeing any staggers from normal enemy attacks anymore. Kanaris is also grabbing the skill solve right there. It does save a little bit of menuing time if you opt to only go for one. Might be about the same. I'm losing my trail of thought once again, sorry. So this taunting, which is something that I haven't mentioned. You spam your flashlight at an enemy, and that enemy gets a buff and a debuff, both receiving 80% more damage, or 50% I think, under normal circumstances, and dealing 50% more damage. We don't really care much about them dealing more damage, because none of them can one-hit us, but we do like dealing more damage to them. So you'll see both runners, whenever they're in combat situations that take longer than a few seconds, they'll be spamming their flashlight at the enemies. And this part is Flooded City Discovery Skip, which... yeah, okay. You just have to plunge there and do a set of pretty well-timed movements in order to trigger the discovery scene, and then you can just go down there to the shore fight. And the other thing I haven't gone over so far is why do both runners only do combat with one specific type of attack, or at least for the vast majority of time with their sword? Because that light sword, or pretty much any small sword, they have a particular trait which we don't know if it's intended or not, but it's still there even though after some similar type of glitches have been fixed. Whenever you dash, it amplifies the damage of this particular attack by 5, if you time it well. And both runners have that thing equipped in 2 different weapon sets in the same slot. So they can just swap their weapon, throw out one of those, we call them damage glitches, leaving one spinning sword in the air, and then just throw out the same sword, technically speaking, a second time, because the game treats them as 2 different instances, effectively allowing us to deal pretty much double of our base damage multiplied by 5 and then multiplied by our damage buffs and then also multiplied by taunts, so we're basically just dealing a tremendous amount of damage even when we're underleveled. And the same thing is obviously even more true if you have critical hits, which amplify your damage by another 5 times, because that's how crits work in this game. And then you also have
the fact that Kanaris has BC3, which gives him 55% average base damage increase. Sadly though, he's in our least favorite section of the game right now, which is a very, very shoot 'em up section. There's nothing you can really do beating this up much. You can just memorize the waves, and then there's the bosses, which do have a few technicalities to them. But despite small amounts of RNG and doing those things well, there's not much you can do. Kanaris has them down pretty much to perfection, so if you watch what he's doing and if you copy exactly what he's doing, there's a very big chance that you won't be doing it any better. But also, since this section is kind of uninteresting for people that have seen it plenty of times, feel free to grab a drink, some food, do whatever you like. There's also a very big bounty on finding skip for this section. It's somewhere north of 2,300 US dollars, I think. Curry pizza is on the line, non-alcoholic beverage for people that are not allowed to drink, and an alcoholic mixed drink for people that are allowed to drink. So yeah, just feel free to find a skip for this section. And trust me, it's not that easy. People have tried. Marky, who is incredibly dedicated, has tried for many, many times and he hasn't found one. I've tried a little bit, but I can't really find any pointers on how to do it without breaking the game or without modifying the game. Yeah, the first boss is the ground flyer. That's just that. It flies, it shoots rockets, round bullets, and it dies really fast. Zheng getting into a more interesting part of the game, or being in a more interesting part of the game, we can see if he actually manages to also pull them off very well. His discovery was very clean, and I think his shore fights and this particular part of the glitch should also be very clean. He opted to do the self-destruct version and just plunge very far. That also works. People have different approaches to this. I sadly don't know which one is the technically fastest as of right now. Shore fight can be pretty tricky at times, especially with this particular fidget spinner, but if you develop a good strategy on how to get him to not fly away from you, too far that is, then you're pretty much good. The rest of the fight is just trying to do some clean combat, not get stunlocked by stubbies or getting trapped by whirly arms. Whenever they do the whirly arms and you're too close to them, if you're not in an iframe animation already, you're pretty much... I don't know if I can say screwed. I guess so. And the part we just saw him jumping into that dialogue is, or into that cutscene, is to skip the dialogue so he can get into the flight unit faster than he would be able to otherwise. That only works if you actually do the discovery skip. Otherwise, you'd have to drown yourself out, I think. I've never actually had to do that. Or I had to, but I didn't know about it. Kanaris continuing to obliterate wave after wave at front very efficiently. Since both runners are in that section right now, I'm struggling to think of things that I can tell you about it that aren't obvious or about memorizing. Sadly, this part is also like completely irrelevant in terms of Kanaris having DC3. Our damage is determined by our level, not by our equipment. For the most part, that is. Chips do make a difference, but you cannot critically hit as far as I know. Range attack up does help though, and melee attack up. But since all those enemies pretty much die in one hit anyways, it doesn't make much of a difference. At least in A ending. And this is, I'm pretty sure, core 1. Yeah, that's core 1. So the strategy for this is hit those cores 5 times with melee attacks and finish them off with your ranged attacks. If you do it well, there's very little RNG involved, and it's a very reliable way of finishing the cores, the small ones. And after that you just want to do what Kanaris is doing, fire 2 pop programs, and usually that's enough to finish the pod in 1 cycle.
Electromagnetic interference eliminated. Preparing for satellite laser strike.
Few small cutscene skips, but other than that, it's just grunt stuff. This section can be very scary when you're playing very hard, because sometimes those enemies do spawn in places where you can't damage them, but they can damage you. And if you don't do what Kanaris is doing right there, or if you mess it up, then their bullets can one-shot you. Not of concern for us though in this section.
Let's leave this area to the reinforcements. I have an idea. You and I should meet up at the spot I just marked.
We've got mortars lining the shoreline here. All the EMP shielding in the world won't.
I don't actually have any benchmarks right now as to how fast Kanaris is. I think that he sets his life split up in such a way that his timer does not change color while he's racing. I might be wrong on that, so I have no idea if he's actually significantly far ahead of his PB or even behind. I have no idea. And I sadly didn't do any markdowns, but that way we'll all be on our toes. Also, if you're wondering why the timers are so far apart by now, that's a load screen thing. Different players have different load screens, that's why we're timing loadless in this game, and the timers will just desync because of different loading times, but effectively both runners should be... How can I put it? Like RTA, both runners are pretty much in the same state.
I was part of the machine's network when it happened, so I remember it. The moment it reached land, it went berserk and began attacking everything in sight. No one could figure out how to stop it. We eventually marooned it deep in the ocean, but it seems to be searching for a way back.
Struggling a little bit with my voice here, sorry. But doing solo commentary and talking, I'm not really very used to that. Yeah, so that's grunt for you. We shoot, and we obliterate tiny enemies.
Proposal: 9S should be reported to command as a deserter.
No.
So I guess now is a good time to answer some questions from chat. So if you guys have anything you want details to, just feel free to say so, as long as it's on topic and PG-13.
I'm going to see if we can use those missiles back on the shore.
And conforms with the rules. And as Zero just mentioned, or I guess Zero or Xero, I'm not too sure, in chat, the current world record for finishing Grun is 1:04:03. I think by that he meant in the current world record, that's when he finishes Grun. Small difference on the next core at Grun is basically we can use one of our pop programs to immediately kill one of the small cores. It's a small optimization that not only saves a bit of time but also helps with minimizing the RNG in the whole. And we only need one pod program because there's this particular spot on the hitbox of the core which sadly Kanaris missed, that normally would allow us to instantly kill that core. wschseng also coming up on the core 1 currently. Both runners just waiting for Grun to be over, same as me, I think. I don't want to be too negative. Grun is, the first time I did it was actually a pretty amazing fight, I really enjoyed it. It was very different from anything I'd ever played before in other video games.
To be fair, I've never been much into shmups, but it just was really cool, very cinematic and very Hollywood-esque, I guess, even. But as you just keep doing it over and over, it just becomes a bit bland. But who am I to talk? Like, Kanaris has played this game for over 1,000 hours. I think he's killed Grun more times than anyone else. And he's still doing it without crying. So, coming up on the luckily last core of Grom, strategy is pretty much the same as it is for the second one. You can use one of your pod programs, as Kanaris is doing right there, and then you just 5 hits and pod fire the small cores to that and hopefully hit the correct hitbox on the main core and just one-shot that, like so. Seng doing the mortar section. 2 different strategies, one is spam, one is timing. I opt for spam, some other people do too, some opt for timing. I think Seng opt for timing, but timing can do this and lead to some major time loss. Spamming is pretty guaranteed. Also, Kanaris just, I don't know if he golded that segment, technically speaking, but he definitely is faster with Grun than he is in world record. So we might actually see another race with world record. That did happen once before already. Coming into my personal absolute favorite section of the entire game, everything past Grun. So we do a few drown warps here to cover distance more quickly, and I think there was a slight fumble there by Kanaris, but that's what happens when you do spear dashing on uneven ground. Sometimes you end up doing weird, crazy stuff in the air. Also, spear dashing can be very hard to directionally control, depending on your controller layout. Kanaris doing something that, from what I know, only he knows how to do it that way or that way, which is a spear clip out with SD cycling. You can cycle through attack animations by using self-destructs, as Kanaris is demonstrating right there. And that's how we actually managed to chain those spear dashes. Normally they wouldn't come out one after another, but the self-destruct makes it so that we skip right to that attack every single time. And through that method we can actually clip out death, which is normally tremendously hard to achieve, but has been quite doable for a lot of people with the spear once they got used to it, myself included. And here we might be seeing something, I think, that, yeah, once again, the spear clip out for mansplaining. The lineup is a lot more convenient to me and a lot more lenient than the ones for the small sword. So if you got spear, definitely take the time to learn that. It's, at least I think it's a lot more consistent, it's faster, and it's just really fun to clip out there with the spear. This section, what Kanaris is doing actually, the purpose of it is being able to skip a major part of dialogue from Adam, and I'm so happy that he waited. Because if you punch or if you do stuff with the elevator too quickly, then you can either mess up the dialogue skip, or you can even end up in a soft lock. And a little bit of swag there. Basically, we're using the elevator dialogue to skip over the last part of Adam's dialogue, and it's called mansplaining because he just explains stuff over and over and more, and he pretty much just keeps repeating himself. Also, it's a very spoiler-friendly thing to just skip that dialogue. Stopping damage here is mostly so he does not teleport away. If we deal too much damage to him, he'll teleport. And yeah, by the way, that was insanely fast, like the entire segment. Kanaris was... Most people struggle to get to the elevator in time to get skip. Kanaris was waiting there for like 5 seconds. Maybe not most people, but a lot of people, including myself, of course.
And yeah, that's VC3 for you. You probably will not see combat that fast in your average run. VC3 is sadly 99% RNG. You have a certain amount of consistency to it over several runs, but depending on your routing, that varies quite wildly.
Something tells me this is going
Kanaris
to
doing
a lot of killing.
more spear dashing and being on pace for world record, 20 seconds ahead.
I suppose he knows
Let's
something.
let's just hope for the best and wish him luck. I'm very sorry that I'm not really going much into what wschseng is doing right now, but on one hand he was at Grun, on the other hand Kanaris is really on good pace to get world record, and it's pretty hyped to see the world record for having VC3 and the spear and crit chips.
They wanted to discuss the peace treaty.
No kidding.
Apparently, they're seeking to form an alliance.
wschseng also doing the drown warp, which helps us to skip dialogue in other categories, and in this category just to the bridge more quickly than just chaining all those movement techs. Also coming up on the add-on part of the run. Kanaris is getting into factory, which has some of the most high-octane skips in the game, I would say. They are not only dangerous, but Kanaris also managed to get there so fast that is pretty crazy. Look, I think he does that quite frequently, that he managed to get there before Pascal spawns, which I've never seen before Spear was routed into A. It doesn't really help us much in terms of time save, but overall, as long as we're there, actually I think it does save time. If we're there, we can directly talk to Pascal and optimize our timing as much as humanly possible. So basically, if you're there before he spawns, you're doing pretty damn good. Poor Kanaris is having a tummy ache. Time to explode, I guess. So, yeah, that guy just walks really slowly. That's why we just chill here and wait, and maybe coming up to the elevator very slowly. And then we go in and hopefully talk to Pascal. So he shuts up and we save 7 seconds. Talking to him makes the elevator started to load in immediately rather than after Pascal's dialogue, so that's pretty convenient. And now we're up to Mook's room. wschseng also opting, as is kind of expected, to do the mansplaining skip. I don't think anyone actually actively ignores mansplaining, because if you do it to perfection, I'm pretty sure it saves almost exactly 45 seconds. So you should always be doing that if you know how this works, and if not, you should probably learn it. Let's. Kanaris is plunging out of the Mook's room, which saves us at least 8 seconds, depending on our combat. But we do pass on the experience we get, which is deemed not really important enough to not do the skip. Level 20 does give us significantly more damage, because we're getting spare anyway. There's pretty much no way we're going to achieve level 20. At least if we skip over the tank, and even if we do get the roller coaster mods, we're not guaranteed to get it. This skip, I won't go too in depth, but as you can see, we want to go out of this particular room in order for the elevator to respawn or reset its state, so we can go back up to the higher ground, because that's where all our maneuverability will come from as soon as we clip out. And this second part of the skip, we want to get onto that girder, which is not always easy, and actually gets a little bit harder with VC3, which is why me personally I've tried to do it with the spear, but varying success. Which leads to this one, which is pretty hard to do, but Kanaris managed to pull it off. you need a very good timing on when you start to hold your... Whoopsie. That looked a bit monk-ass, but I think Kanaris will be... Yes. When you hold your jump button, basically you start pop gliding and the game thinks, oh, time to reset you because you've been falling for too long. And if you hit the trigger first, you can progress through the story and skip pretty much the entire factory. If you mess it up, then... yeah. But most people that practice it like crazy, they don't mess it up. I do. And as you can see, Kanaris, or as Xero stated, Kanaris was actually having plunge glitch right there. If you have a... if you release your dash on a certain frame towards the end of the dash and then do a heavy attack, instead of plunging, you can sometimes just dash swing or a standing heavy, which is a weird quirk, but it's pretty difficult to do consistently and it doesn't have that many uses, but if you manage to learn it, it would actually give you a little bit of an advantage. I just think it's either too hard or not worth to learn. But I strongly encourage anyone with the dedication and motivation to try learning it and make use of it. Doing it on accident, though, can backfire a little bit, as we saw with Kanaris. Currently he's just hanging out there, so he doesn't have to worry about being attacked by that giant glowy ball. That section can be a bit dangerous if you're overdoing it with the height, because you plunge or jump out of the arena, which is not really that good, because it kind of destroys your run, but as long as you're careful, it's worth it. And Kanaris is trying to zero cycle him. Will he get the zero cycle? Looking good. I think he got the zero cycle. Yes. Very nice. That was incredibly fast, by the way. I don't know exactly how the zero cycle works, but I know you need to slow-mo in order to achieve it. Some people rely on crits, but I'm not sure if you actually do need the critical hits if you have VC3. Ooh, Kanaris doing the infamous Shabu clip. It's already losing him time, sadly, but it's a pretty big swag thing. So you can't really see much right here, but once you clip out there, and if you do it all first time, you can actually plunge right here. Perfect scenario, you actually skip over this clip and you just plunge straight through. Yeah, that I don't think he's practicing that a lot, but it looked really nice overall, I think. And it's really iffy. It's consistent, but it's iffy. It needs a lot of practice, and the whole spare thing. You can clip out with the first, sometimes even with the second, sometimes with the third. It needs testing, let's put it this way. Shabu clip is still faster than the high jump if you get it all perfect, but not really by much. Yeah, always swag when ahead is dangerous, but you've got to build on those hidden...
I'm heading back to the resistance camp. What about you?
I'll probably wander back to the village.
You do want some air to improve. You don't want the ultimate perfect run and then never touch the game again.
This is the resistance camp.
Say again? I'm not receiving.
Scanning for interference.
The machine requesting it. Backup. Forces in range. Please, we can...
Let's move.
By the way, I was joking, obviously. You don't actually want to build in hidden time safe. So you should try for the best, and once you got it, you should improve.
Contacting the bunker via laser relay system.
Affirmative.
Xero just stating the run is suboptimal because Kanaris decided not to do negotiations escape. I kind of doubt that because reasons, but in theory, it could be the truth. We just need to figure out the specifics. Either way, there's currently no one who can keep up with Kanaris. Maybe there will be in the future, but yeah. Kanaris just recently has been improving his world record over and over. And yeah. Second place sadly hasn't been able to play much due to technical difficulties, but yeah, the pace at which Kanaris keeps improving his world records is just... it's pretty mind-boggling.
You again?
And yeah, the second of the nice and nifty balls, that one comes with a little bit of thunder puddle. We can ignore that for the most part. And Kanaris did do a small stop of damage there. I believe it was in an attempt to get the ball to do what we call instant vacuum, which is he just plunges to the ground, sucks in a lot of stuff around him, and becomes that once you destroy him. And then afterwards, people just do like certain variations of kill strats. We pull him up here so he doesn't move around, kind of get stuck there, and we just destroy him as fast as possible, as Kanaris did there extremely fast. Small optimizations here and there, Kanaris still trying to grab as much experience as possible without time loss. I think he's hoping to get level 20. But
there's too many.
He had an extremely good pit fight early on in the run, so it's not completely impossible. It's actually pretty... I'm not sure, does he have level 18 or 19? I can't read it, it's really tiny for me, sadly. I think it was a level 19 level up. Either way, it's not impossible for him to achieve level 20 in this run. His pit fight was pretty amazing. wschseng coming up on the first of the balls. I hope you don't... I hope you won't be angry with me saying that I'm not really going too much into your run lag. I'm sorry, I apologize. I wonder if Kanaris, however, is gonna go for the zero cycle. It definitely looks like it. If you deal enough damage to this thing while it's in the air, you can destroy it. Sadly, he doesn't... Oh, he does get the dialogue skip. That means it's time save on so many layers. The zero cycle itself saves time if you kill him before the dialogues are finished.
Looks like he's bombarding the area with forced connections.
I'm not entirely sure about the dialogue queues right now, to be honest, but technically speaking, you can get the dialogue skip there, which Kanaris did, and then you can immediately transition into the E-fight. If you don't get the dialogue skip, you actually have to wait there for a few seconds before he starts his cutscene and attacks. And something else you'll pretty much definitely be seeing is Kanaris trying to skip the hacking phase. What we try to achieve is we just deal as much damage as possible. Holy cow, okay. Yeah, we deal as much damage as possible while slow-mo damage glitching. The important part is the slow-mo damage glitch. You actually don't need to deal any damage as long as you slow his animation step down enough to skip it, but Kanaris actually did more than enough damage. Yeah, he has VC free, and he has crits, and he has Virtuous Dignity. And he could get the world first 122. It's definitely possible. His insane pace. Going for SD strats. Aborted because too dangerous. He might have missed it. But, alright, interesting. The animation had to finish before the transition. Haven't seen that before. Juicy crits. The SD is a pretty new thing as well. But it's not too difficult, you just look for a specific health point position yourself well, and then you can just do self-destruct instead of trying to chase down Eve. And we have a new world record, ladies and gentlemen. The first sub 123 any percent that we've ever seen.
I can always reload my backup.
There was a little bit of spaghetti, even though Kanaris claims there was lots of spaghetti, but yeah, that was pretty insane.
Upload this corrupted data to the bunker.
122.52 according to Cecilia. Will we see the 52? Yes, we do. Called it. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is officially insane. Zheng should be about, I want to say, 5 minutes from finish, which is actually also an extremely respectable time. So Kanaris has now become officially the most extremely uncontested runner once again that there has been in NieR history. He's been pretty far ahead of the crowd, but it's gonna be a while before anyone gets close to that. Blue has a realistic chance. Blue Metal is also an extremely talented runner who's been spamming runs and improving his times very, very often, but he's gonna have to amp it up a lot. Don't give up, Blue. We need some competition in the top field. Damn, man. That was a pretty crazy run. Even 2B is crying. She can't believe it. Oh yeah, and as I'm reading right now, apparently Kanaris has managed to get his sum of best below 122. He has like a 121 sum of best segments now. Pretty unbelievable stuff. Kanaris is currently preoccupied, but he'll be back soon. Let me switch. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. At least I think he might be joining us soon. I think I did switch the audio. Yes, I did. It should come up any second now. Unless Zheng himself has disabled or is not capturing his audio, it's possible. It's I'm not too sure. I hope you guys don't mind too much. Either way, since Kanaris will be joining me soon, you won't be completely without sound. Just revel in the amazingness that is 122.52 for now. So according to my stream controls, I did switch audio, so I think we're sadly not capturing Zheng's audio. I can try to up it a bit, but I don't think that's going to make a difference. There's still a little bit of room for improvement for Kanaris, but it's going to be very difficult to keep up with VC3 and those critical hits. Zheng coming up on the last section of the game, so let's give him like all the support we can and hope for the best. He's a really good runner. I'm sure he must be a little bit sad and demotivated that he got such big time loss so early in the run. And from what I've seen, he's been, at least early on, struggling a little bit. Maybe he got slightly tilted, I don't know, but overall, I really like him. I'm a bit of a fan of Zheng's runs. So I'm not entirely sure who is going to race who in the finals. I know. Actually, I forgot. I'm so sorry. I would love to let you know, but I forgot. I think it might be Blue versus Kanaris. Let me check the chat really quick. Decided to switch the audio back to Kanaris, but maybe it's just me, but I'm not hearing anything anymore. Okay, I'll just try to deal with the awkward silence. No dude in this run every 20 seconds. I'm so sorry. I wish we could have had someone else or a co-commentator. Yeah, Kanaris, in case you're listening, please feel free to join me. I don't have much I can say, but hey there. I think I'll just hand the mic to you right now because I think you might be able to say it best.
Holy crap, dude. Holy crap. I mean, that's basically all I have to say.
I can strongly agree. This was amazing. So seeing you get VC3 was pretty damn hype on top of
yeah.
it was pretty damn
I
was
was
hype.
so happy.
I was really amazed and impressed how consistent you've gotten with all the spare clips.
Yeah,
the only thing that went wrong as tell was Shabu clip. Everything else about that run looked really damn good.
Yeah, that was really spaghetti due to nerves. After I got the 0 cycle on Soshi, which was amazing, I just got really nervous. And so during the movement back to resistance camp, I just had to kind of tell myself, just calm down, calm down.
You did really well overall.
Yeah, that was insane.
I don't think I could have kept it together. So apparently the chat is looking forward to the finals and it's actually asking, do you think you'll be able to have another world record in the finals?
We'll see. We'll see if I can get the sub 1:22:30 versus Blue Metal in chat.
Hey, so that's cleared up now too. I'm very sorry, but I forgot who was in the finals against you, but now we know. So
yeah,
it's gonna be Blue against Kanaris. As I said, Blue, an incredibly talented runner. Hey there, Sang.
Hello. Congrats on world record.
Thanks, dude.
Really good
GG.
time.
So,
how did your run go?
Pretty bad.
Damn.
Missed factory skip, the plunge down.
Oh no.
Missed the trigger, landed somewhere else and had to backtrack to get the trigger.
That hurts.
No crit chips.
Oh really? Was your pit bad or was it just bad RNG?
Yeah, I didn't get pit SD.
Ah. Yeah, that always.
Yeah. At 4 robots, I equipped chips. I got 2 weapon up.
Oh well, at least you got those, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I don't really want to talk too much. My voice is actually failing a bit.
Thanks a lot for doing this race, dude.
No, it's fine. It actually was really fun, and I feel privileged to have been able to see the world record. I'm sorry that I'm not as great a commentator as some other people out there, but I tried my best. Thank you.
I think it'll make the world record VOD really interesting to watch for the first time for a lot of people who are watching it for the first time.
So, yeah, I'll just try to go over the kind of like standard things a little bit. I guess we know what you guys didn't really like about your runs so far. For Kanaris, we kind of know what you did like about your run. But is there anything you would like to add to it? Like, is there any specific thing that you're like, oh man, I'm so proud of myself for having done that?
There were a few tiny little things here and there where I had to make a split-second decision, like the SD on Eve. I was gonna go for an SD, but then I realized that I had pod launched into him, which means he's gonna get iframes when the SD goes off because he moves to a new location.
I was wondering about that.
And then just trying to get the SD off in the next on the next attack of his was really difficult. But I'm so glad it worked out okay. And then on the Adam 2 fight, he did the double grabby hand move where he turns invincible, and that was like right before the dialogue was supposed to start to go to phase 3. And I had to choose between slow-moing him or just like trying not to slow-mo so that he would complete the move as quickly as possible. And thanks to VC3 and crits, I did kill him before. I hit the dialogue threshold before he went invincible, which was really cool. Little things like that here and there were really nice. But things I didn't like too much were like Flooded City was a bit gross.
You mean the shore fight, or you mean
the shore fight?
Okay, because
I messed up the fidget spinner, and then I did a counter attack on the last stubby because he decided to whirly arms, and I didn't handle it very well. But yeah, it didn't lose me too much time.
And Sang, well, what about yourself? Like, is there anything you would like to add, something that you enjoyed about your run, something that you were proud of, or something that you want to emphasize?
Not too much to be proud about that run. It was pretty bad.
Give yourself a bit more credit. Like, as I've said it before, I'm a bit of a fan of your runs. I think you're doing a good job, and always amazed like how you managed to change the things that we took for granted in the past. Like crane skip has been set in stone for pretty much the entire time. It did, but overall Kanaris actually did your skip and it saved him quite a bit of time there, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
So you did manage to you changed the meta for the game in several different ways.
Yeah, my skips save about 10 seconds overall. But
there's 10 seconds we didn't have.
Yeah.
So thank both of you guys for being here, for racing. Thanks for organizing the whole tournament. Thank you for Speed Gaming for hosting us so short notice, and especially to Xelnus, who's been of great help. Please, everyone who's been here, watch the finals. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's going to be
mind-blowing spaghetti or mind-blowing amazingness. We'll see. Both will be fun.
We don't know when the finals are going to be, by the way, but in the next few weeks we'll have it decided. And
I'll leave the outro to the two of you.
Something else I was going to say. Total mind blank, dude.
I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted.
No. Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say. Watch the finals. Do it. You know you want to. Visit the URL in chat if you want to look at the standings and whatnot. There it is right there. Alright. That's all I have to say. Oh wait, no, one more thing. Coming out of Adam 1, that slow-mo strat is godlike, dude. Where you slow-mo the platforms and they don't break. Oh, so good.
I actually missed that at first, but yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing to me too. I didn't realize that it was possible, and
shoutouts to TechFius, I think.
If they actually don't fall at all, that seems like a really good strat. You just don't have to do all the jumping. You keep your momentum to the max.
It is really good. But yeah,
alright, that's it for me.
That's all I have to say. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Yeah, have a good day.